Hi, this is Bonnie, and today I'm going to be using my gel press and some Fairy Hug stamps and some Distress Oxide. I'm going to be making a birthday card. This is the gel press that I am using. It is a 5x7, and the stamps I'm planning to use are roses. This is from the new collection, and Fairy Hugs Wild Roses. These are beautiful. And I'm going to be using two older stamps. Some people are a little bit confused with this stamp. It is a sentiment type stamp, but it was made intentionally so that you couldn't really read it that well, so that it would be more of a background stamp. So that's how I'm going to be using that today. And I'm also going to be using It's Your Birthday because I'm going to be making a birthday. So I did cut my cardstock, so that is just basically half the size of the paper. I won't be using the whole thing, but I'll be just using a section that's 5x7. I am also planning to use Distressed Oxide Pink Raspberry, Kitsch Flamingo, and Spun Sugar, and along with my blending brushes. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started. My design in my head that I'm going to be doing is one way, so I'm basically going to be putting down the ink in the opposite direction of what I'm planning to make, if that makes sense, because you kind of like whenever you make a paper, it is the opposite of what you are making. So I'm going to go ahead and start with some, I wanted to show you what I'm thinking of doing too. This makes a little bit more sense. I'm going to take out this acetate that comes with the stamps and use that as my guide. So what I'm planning to do is have some of the roses coming up from this direction. Now if I put the ink down on here, it's going to be in the opposite side. So I have to put the ink on this side, if that makes more sense to you. So I'm going to predominantly try to make some of the ink go in this general area. So I want the darkest color to go on there first, and that is the pink raspberry. And like I said, I'm doing it opposite of in my mind of what it's going to be. So I'm going to make sure I get a lot of pink here because I want that to show through the rose. So I'm basically kind of like painting the ink on in the places in which I'm hoping the rose is going to be. And I can show you what I mean. So this is not where it's going to go. It's going to be on the opposite side, but it'll be like that. And I am also going to be painting, like watercolor painting with the ink at the same time once it gets all done. So I'm going to have this one was going to come up from here, so this is the opposite direction. So I'm going to be putting that up there. And it doesn't have to be perfect because I want it to have more of a watercolor look to it. So I'm just trying to get some colors in there to make that work. And that's my darkest color. And now I'm going to go with the Kitsch Flamingo and just start adding more color in there, just because it's all going to blend together once it gets wet. And all the blank areas that you kind of see, I am going to be adding some, I didn't pull that out because it's just something I usually use, the Pumice Stone. So I'm going to keep adding this pink, like I said, in random places. This one is Spun Sugar. And then I'm going to pull out my, and I'm totally going to pull out my Pumice Stone. And this seems like a really easy, very easy type project. As long as you can figure in your mind where you're going to place your stamping, then you just do the opposite on here. So that's the plan. That's what I'm going for. That was pretty simple. That didn't take us more than, 4 minutes to put that on. And then nothing really fancy at this point. And I'm just gonna spray that and put my paper on it. I'm gonna, I do want it to be really kind of blended like watercolor paper. I don't want it to be too defined. So I'm also gonna be spraying my paper because I do want it saturated. And the way I can usually tell that it's gonna be working well is when it oozes out. But because I made my paper larger, I'm not gonna be able to see it. And here's the deal with this. If it's not exactly the way that I want it, I can dry this up and add more. Or I can just keep adding as it's wet. But let's see what we get. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. I don't want that little bit of an edge. So I'm just gonna dry that up slightly down here. And it's not gonna matter because I'm gonna be cutting this back also because it's larger than what I want. So that's exactly what I wanted. You can see how pretty that is. And that will be perfect. I can even hold this over here to show you that's the intention. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this dry and then we'll start stamping. Okay, so my paper is semi-dry and I still want to add a design to the background before I start stamping the roses. So I am going to use a Pumice Stone to start with to see how this works. Like I said, I want to use this as a partial stamp. I don't want it fully stamped, so I'm going to be using my blending brush so I can be a little bit more precise. And I'm just going to put that on here randomly and see what happens. If it doesn't, I will go ahead and stamp the whole thing. But I'm just going to put it randomly on here, and then I'm going to give it a light spray on here, and then stamp it. Okay, let's see what we get. Yep, there's not much of anything there, which is why this was a test. So I'm going to do one more. I'm going to give it a little bit more on this and see what we get. It's still damp. Yeah, it's very, very light. So, because I want it just a little bit darker, I'm going to try the Hickory Smoke. And I'm going to do the first thing like I did before, just with the blending brush. Whoops. Be nice if I got the right one. Hickory Smoke. Yeah, I can really see that on here. That's going to work out better. Could be that my Pumice Stone needs to be re-inked. I'm going to just spray the pad or the ink or the stamp this time instead of the paper. Let's see. Yeah, that's going to work. That's what I want. It's very faint, but you can see it. It's exactly what I want. Okay, so I want some down here as well. So I don't get some on right away. I am going to use my acetate and set that on. It's gonna arch up a little bit because I got it wet. I really like it better if I spray on the stamp instead of the paper as I'm working, just for your information. So I am still gonna go ahead and put a little bit of Pumice Stone on here first, just because I can see by looking I have both colors and I really like that. And what ended up happening was the water, spraying the stamp with water, got released both colors. So we'll just put a little bit of Hickory Smoke and we'll do some spraying. Okay. Don't want to leave it on here too long because I just want a faint. There we go. It's exactly what I wanted. That worked out really well, and that's why I love this stamp. You can't really read it, but you could if you look at some of it. You can see, like I can see the word play, so it's really not one of those stamps where you want to read the sentiment. It's basically for background like mixed media, or I'm making a card, whatever, just to give you some texture. All right, so I'm gonna let this dry, and then we'll come back and probably I'll be ready to do the roses. Okay, so I have my paper all ready to start stamping on. And one of the things I forgot to tell you that I do quite often is I will iron my paper with the iron. It helps to smooth it out and flatten it out. It's not perfect, but lots of times it will curl or have a little bit of warping, and ironing it seems to help a little bit. It's not perfect, but it sure does help when I'm ready to stamp. So this is Wild Roses, and I am going to frame out where I want to put those first. I am going to use, I think I'm going to use the Nocturne, not Nocturne, but the Morning Mist for the roses, because I want them to look like they are a little bit in the background. And again, remember, I'm going to be trimming this back, and so it'll look a little bit different once I trim it back to a 5x7. Actually, it'll be a little bit shorter than a 5x7 because I like to have a mat of some sort on my card. So let's see how that works. Yeah, I can see a little spot. I want to go ahead and add a little bit more to that. And I think the reason it's getting that bump there is because I have this paper behind, and there's a little line. I'm going to pull that out. I don't really need it at the moment. And that'll help me have that stamp properly. Okay. Yeah, just a little bit right there. I still need a little bit, so I'm going to have to go ahead and ink that little bit up. Yep, now we've got the full. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add the larger rose. This was the Wild Rose, and I want to add the larger rose. And the problem that I was going to have, you can see this is too dark. It's going to take away from everything in the background. So what I decided to do was make a mask of just the leaves. So I'm going to see if we can get that to work. Because it wouldn't have worked the other way, I don't think, very well. I could have gone the other way and masked off the Wild Roses, but I chose not to. All right, so I'm not going to be able to use this because it is getting all bumped up right there. It's too wide. I should have turned it around, but that'll work. All right, so in order to keep the petals, I got some paint or something on my stamp. There, I got that out. Okay, so in order to keep that from stamping, I think what I'm going to do is tape that down to my lid. I think that'll work the best. Make that so that it will stamp fine. But I'm going to tape that to my board. And that will give me my mask. That should give me my mask. The problem is I don't want to get ink on it, so I'm going to have to fold it back and then put that back up. And that will work. Here, let me show you. I'm talking, I'm not even showing you. Hold on. So what I did was, like I said, I cut out a mask, and I don't want those leaves to show. So I went ahead and I'm going to tape this down, and I can see right away I need to put that up higher because I do want to get that edge, but not all of that. Okay. Line that up the best I can. But here's the deal. I can't stamp it because ink will get on here. So I'm going to pull that back and then stamp, or ink. So I'm still going to try to avoid getting it on those leaves. Now I only have to do this 2 times, so we'll see how that works. All right, like I said, this is going to go on that. Bring that over and stamp. Because like I said, these are too thick, I believe, to be shown. I really, really want this to stamp the first time, so I'm going to hold it on here a little bit longer. Yep, that's what I was afraid was going to happen. That little bit right there is not going to show. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this piece down a little bit and see if we can get that to show up. Even if I get a little bit of a shade, you know, a shadow from the leaf, it really won't matter. So I'm going to stamp that up. I can see that I needed more ink up here on that leaf anyway. Overall, it needed more ink. Like I said, these are kind of testing it, seeing if we can make that work. That little tip is not showing. So you know what? I'm probably just going to draw that in, but I'm going to give it one more little try by pulling it down just a little bit further and see if I can get it. Yep, got a little bit of a shading too, but that works. So that's kind of the look that I was going for right there. I still want some roses up here, but I'm not too concerned about it overlapping. I think that's where I like them. Well, I don't want very many, so I'm going to probably have to turn my, totally turn my paper around the other way for that one. So we're going to go ahead and continue with this side the way I've got it set up first. So I want to do it up here at the top the same way, somewhat. It's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and see how that will work out. So that's the plan. It's going to look pretty similar to the one, like a complete mirror image of what I did down below. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Take this off. I'm going to be using my Morning Mist again. Okay, and that doesn't matter up here because we're going to be cutting that off, so that's going to work. Okay, and then get this one set up, which shouldn't be a problem. Make sure I'm the right way around. I am. Okay, so I think if I go that route, I am not going to be having the leaves, the same leaves that I need, because that is that leaf. Let's check that out. Yep, that's that leaf. Well, no, that's right. Yep, I've got the right ones. Well, do I? Yes, I do. Okay, so we're still good. It should make sense. I was pretty sure it was a mirrored side. We've got that one all set up. Same thing, it's just a repeat of what I did on the other side, so this helps you to see how I did it again. I'm going to turn my thing, so I might be able to show you this better. Okay, so, oh, I need to do this the other way. All right, so I line it up just like that to where it is supposed to be. And then I use my tape. All right, I'm gonna flip that back around. Need to get my ink pad out of the way. And again, I'm gonna pull it down just a tad because you know that I needed that extra space. So flip that back, ink it up with the Nocturne ink, and I'm gonna try to avoid the leaf as much as I can. And some of this leaf isn't going to show up either, the top. Okay. Put that back over, flip it around, and stamp. Like I said, I didn't need to put any ink on these at all. Obviously, it's not even on the card. Okay, that looks pretty good. I am going to get the bottom a little bit better, so I'm going to move this down. I know this is a little fuzzy, but it does work. Now, you don't have to combine these two at all. You could just do the wild roses, or you could just do two of the roses, the big rose. There's also a, let me show you. You could just do these two roses together. That would work too. I'm just doing a little bit more because I want to. Let's give that a try. Okay. Okay, that's the way it's going to be. I might add just a tad bit right there on the end of that petal with my marker, but that's how that's going to look. The total, it's upside down. Let me show you the right way around now. This is how it's going to look. And I am going to add, like I said, a little bit of, then I could do that on this side for sure. Thing is, if I do that, I'm going to have to make sure that that isn't going over too much overlapping. And it won't be there. I also need to have room, talking because I'm just doing this for the first time, I also need room for my sentiment. And I was going to put my sentiment down here, so I might change my mind about where those roses go, because I do want the sentiment on. So let's see, yeah, the sentiment needs to go right there. So I can probably just add a little bit if I wanted to. If I put the sentiment there, I can go ahead and add that. I just don't want to have to mask it off. Or, let's see here. I can add that one. And that's what we're going to do. That's going to work. Because I can keep those petals for the most part off. And that'll work. And I'm using a lighter color. All right. So I need to get my little, find out what I did with it. Okay. So I need to find my smaller rose, and I'll be, oh, smaller rose is right there. What am I doing? Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stamp that. Here I'm looking for it thinking that that was my acetate. Okay. Yeah, because only that little bit's going to show, but I am going to do a little bit more of that petal. This is where the brushes come in really handy too. Like if you were going to stamp with the brushes, you can just really get to specific spots without having, let me show you, without like using a brush like this, and then you don't have to worry so much about the masking. See, look at how I am, well you cannot see, here we go. I am just putting that exactly where I want it to stamp. And that works pretty good, getting it where I want it. Okay, so that will all come cut off right there. Let's see if I can do the other side as well. Now that I've decided to use that. Yeah. Okay, we just get this set up. It is going to be different than the other one at the top. Okay, and I'm using the Morning Mist. Okay, I think I'm going to get the petals just a little bit more. Here we go. Okay, now for the sentiment. And we'll have the stamping all done. All right. I gotta get the ink off my fingers. I'm gonna get it all over my card. This actually curves right into, if you can see that, it curves right like how the flower goes. That looks kind of good that way. All right. I'm going to stamp it one more time because my ink pad needs to be refilled. Okay, so we've got everything stamped. The next thing I'm going to do is cut this back and add a little bit more color to the other roses. Okay, so I'm going to be speeding up the video for the when I do the painting with the I call it watercolor painting with the Distress Oxide. Okay, so I've got everything stamped. The next thing I'm going to do is cut this back and add a little bit more color to the other roses. Okay, so I'm going to be speeding up the video for the when I do the painting with the Distress Oxide. Okay, so I'm going to be speeding up the video for the when I do the painting with the Distress Oxide. Okay, so I've added the ink by painting it on. I am going to add a little bit more with colored pencils, and I will also speed that up. But before I do, I'm going to tell you which ones I'm using. This is 929, and this one is 1014. These are all Prismacolor pencils, and this one's 912. So you can see I already started right there with the green on the leaf. So I'm going to go ahead and get those colored in, and I'll speed that up. Okay, so that is my completed card, and I went ahead and matted it on some watercolor paper and on a black card. So I appreciate you stopping by, and I will have all the links to what I used in the description below. So thanks again.